It's 3 p.m. on a Thursday, and the clock is ticking. Somewhere in an undisclosed location, maybe a bunker built for moments just like this, one voice must rise to the challenge. The gear is set up and checked. Levels tested. All of the noise and distractions suddenly fade into the background. This needs to happen right now, or else. Everything rides on these next few moments, these next few words. Because the audience, vast, hungry, ruthless, demands perfection. The fate of history itself might depend on what he's about to say. A final breath. His mouth opens and the words come out. Hello and welcome everyone to the Badass Week. My name's Ben Johnson and I'm...
All right, Ben, let's take that again. Take 100.
Damn it. Okay, let's start over again. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Badass of the Week. My name is Ben Thompson, and I am joined today by my co-host, Dr. Pat Larish. Pat, welcome back to the show. We are celebrating a milestone today.
We are, yes. This is our 100th episode.
Yes. We are doing 100 episodes, or we have done 100 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been there for, I would say, the humongous majority of them. I feel like you've been on, I don't know how many, but... pretty close to all of them.
Yeah, it feels like it. And I enjoy listening to the ones with other co-hosts too. Those are fun. Yes.
And we have, I guess another co-host. He's also the show producer. We have Andrew Jacobs here as well. So Andrew, you have worked on all 100 episodes, even though you've only been on air talent for a few of them.
Only a few of them. It's funny if you don't count, but yeah, we're not counting bonus episodes. But, so yes, this is 100 episodes, and excited to join and have worked on all 100. The vast majority of which have been, both of you guys. So I think this is our first time appearing in an episode together, though.
Oh, that's right.
We've been
on the same one. Yeah, we've had other guests. We've had guests come on, and me and Pat have interviewed them. But but you were never one of them, I guess.
It's good to have you on, Andrew. It's good to have you on in front of the mic too.
Yeah. Special guest.
Yes.
I'm super excited to be here and super excited for our 100th episode. And I know we sort of plotted this out a little bit. I might have, as producer, been doing a little bit more plotting than you guys for this episode, which is a little bit atypical because we're not just going to tell someone's story today, which makes me wonder actually what we're going to title this episode. Any ideas?
Right now it's episode 100 in the notes. We tried. So Pat and I were trying to come up with some ideas of what's something that we could do with 100. There's 47 Ronin. No, that's not going to work. It's what are the number? There must be 100 something, right?
Aside from 100 being a good round number, and hey, it's a perfect score on your Latin quiz. 100%. The best I could do is a hecatomb, which is this is very in character for me. A hecatomb is, in ancient Greek culture, it was a sacrifice of, at least in theory, 100 cattle to a god. In practice, it wasn't always 100, shrinkflation or whatever. And the term... Okay, yes, it's got the word 100 hecaton in it, but really it just means a really big sacrifice.
And that's what we're doing today. We're sacrificing a really big sacrifice.
Is this what we're offering to the gods? Yeah.
Yeah, I ordered 100 burgers.
Okay. Yeah.
So there you go. I figured what might make sense for this episode is a little bit of a look back where we've been, a little bit of where we are, and a little bit of where we're going next. So in terms of looking back, I think, go the Badass of the Week brand or whatever you want to call it goes, Ben, you can sort of regale us as to how you started this for a few minutes, and then I'll tell you where my story of getting involved.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like I might have told this story before on the show, so I'll tell kind of the short version. But yeah, Badass originally started for me. I had done history in college. I'd studied history in college. My dad was a big history buff, and he would collect like not necessarily authentic pieces, but here's a replica of a British cavalry saber, and here's like a replica of a Roman gladius or something. And so it was always kind of physical history that you could touch that was, that we always had in our house. And I got really into, reading old stories and hearing, historical films, historical books, all that stuff. And I studied history in college, and then I got out of school, and it's like, being a history major does not necessarily prepare you for the workforce.
What?
Yeah.
Transferable skills. Come on.
Yeah, sure. I can prepare long form prose, but I actually did get a job at I was in Boston at the time, and I got a job at the classics department at Boston University. And that's where I met Pat, because she was working there.
Yeah,
and as a professor, and and so I was working there, and we didn't have summer classes really. So I would be there all summer, and, you have to sit in the office in case students come in and have questions, or, professor needs something, you got to be there. I was basically like a glorified secretary at that job, but you had to be there all the time. And there were days where there was nobody would be in the office at all. I'd be the only person, not only in the department, but on the entire floor of that building, which was like this old church. Like, thought always that old church.
Yeah,
all these stained glass windows, very like Dracula. And there would be no lights on. You'd go down this corridor, and it'd just be like click, click, click. You hear like your footsteps going down the corridor, and one little pool of light at the end, and that was my office. And I would just sit there by myself all day doing nothing. And so I started writing little history stories on like a GeoCities site. It was like whatever, like benscoolwebsite.com.
The little
or something.
Flames up in the top corner.
Animated GIFs and all that stuff, right? It was just I would do the page in Notepad. Like, I just typed HTML in Notepad, and I would just upload an HTML file that I had written myself in Notepad, and that was the website. And then I remember the first time somebody sent me an email, and they were like, "Hey, I found your website by accident. It was pretty cool." I was like so happy. I printed it, and put it up in my office. But yeah, I was just writing for myself and like 3 other people. My mom would read it, and me and my buddy.
For anyone younger than us, I think a good reference point, Squarespace is Squarespace. Let's do an ad right now for Squarespace. Squarespace is basically like what GeoCities was, except way more organized and cleaner and professional.
Yes, yeah. GeoCities was like, I mean, it was, yeah. I guess that is because that's the weird thing with Badass, because I wrote my first article. I posted my first article in April of 2004, and that's like that predates like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, right? I remember when Facebook was coming around, people were like, you should get on this.
That article in like a month and a half is going to be old enough to drive. Or sorry, old enough to drink. It's already old enough to drive.
Yeah, I think it can.
Sorry.
So yeah,
it's drunk.
Yeah.
It's wild. But then that kind of took off, and then that turned into that website became really popular. I like to tell people that I was like, I was internet famous in the mid 2000s.
You were, and that is how I came across you. Probably, I was working in development to, making TV shows for all these different companies and different networks, and I came across your website and wanted to make a TV show out of it. Probably 2008, 2009. I could, if you gave me like an hour, I could pull up the email from that, that long ago to find my email to like your manager being like, "Hey, I want to make a TV show out of Badass of the Week," and your manager wrote back being like, "Ben is tied up in some movie deals, try again another time." But this is my badass story of perseverance is, I probably reached out in 2008 and it didn't work. I probably reached out again in 2011. I'm like, let's make a badass TV show. We'll put it on History Channel, and, movie deals didn't work. 2015, again, didn't work. And finally, easily 10 years later, it was 2018 or 2019, I reached out again, and obviously the landscape of the type of stuff you make out there has changed, and I went from producing not just TV shows but to also podcasts, and I emailed Sean, your agent, shout out, and was like, hey, how's it going? Are you still in any movie deals? I still want to make this. And finally he wrote back and said, this sounds like a good idea. I'll touch base with Ben. And here we are. I swear to God, that was like 2019. So here we are like 6 years later.
Yeah.
On episode 100 of the podcast. And all of this is to say, like, listen, keep trying.
Yeah, right? Yeah, never give up. That's the point of the show and everything, because it was weird. It was tied up, because Badass was tied up with, maybe it was going to be a TV show, maybe it was going to be a movie, maybe it was going to be this, maybe it was going to be that, and then whatever reason, nothing happens, right? You have the rights to this thing, and you give it to somebody, and they try to make a thing out of it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then, when you came and you were like, let's do it as a podcast, like, all right, this is awesome. And then we worked on the podcast, and we brought Pat in. Pat, you came in really early.
Yeah.
And then, because when you were like, you need a co-host, I was like,
you needed a co-host. We needed someone who was smarter, more studious, have a little bit more authority.
Trained. Someone who's more trained than
trained. Me. Okay. We needed someone to put Ben in check.
I don't know. Sometimes we egg each other on.
Yeah, it didn't really work out that way. but we were working on the podcast for a long time before we created it, though. There was like a big lead up to actually releasing the first episode. I feel like we worked on it for like a year before our first episode came out.
Yeah.
I think people, the assumption is that, and you can just hit record and record a podcast and upload it that day, and boom, it's a podcast. That's some podcasts, but I think for something like this, we kind of had to test it out and figure out what worked and what didn't. I remember the very first episode we recorded, which is we did sort of end up using, eventually. Not one of our best.
Right. Well, you're just kind of figuring it out, right?
Yeah.
I was talking about this literally while we were recording, like prepping for this episode. It's like there's stuff that you don't think about. You do think like, oh, I can just turn on my mic and record and I'll tell a funny story. And my friends think I'm funny. This will be fine. But there's stuff, even just basic stuff like introducing guests, right? We've done interviews and stuff. And that was such a weird thing for me to learn. When you watch an interview on TV or you listen to a podcast, they're just like, well, here's our guest here today is blah, blah, blah. Welcome on the show. And then they start talking and then you're like, thanks so much for being on the show. If you need them, you can find them on these places on the internet. Like, that is not the sort of thing that comes naturally to you if you haven't prepared that or done that before. Yeah. I think the first time we had a guest on, I was just like, we did the episode and then I was just like, okay, well, thanks, bye. And then we disconnected and I was like, oh, I got to do something else. Like, you have to do like, where can people find you on the internet? Like, do you have anything you want to say?
Throw them a bone,
it's not
please.
just like a hanging up on a telephone call.
Yeah.
It's been a journey.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious. So what are, of the episodes we've done, what are your, give me your couple favorites. Who are your favorite characters?
There's so many. It's always so hard to do.
Yeah.
Do these.
One answer is whichever one we're working on at the moment, honestly.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of cliched and corny, but it's actually true.
You get really into it. Yeah, you start getting into these stories. And then, me and Pat will meet once or twice before we do an episode and we start getting into it. And once you start thinking about it, we'll both go off like, because you were like, oh, we need somebody to rein you in. And, I think that there was, originally that had been kind of the idea, but now when we meet up, you're like, we both go down these weird rabbit holes. You're like, well, what about this?
Yeah.
Like, but what would that have looked like? Like, oh, I don't know. Let's go into that. And like, oh, maybe we could do an episode. Is this a separate episode or is this like a thing that are we going to be derailing the conversation because we just fell down into this hole? We found this weird thing. Like, heck, it's home. Let's talk about that for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then I will give you guys some answers.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you a moment to think about it, and I'll give you some answers. So I will tell you that I think a couple of my favorite episodes are not even favorite episodes, more characters.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
there's so many great characters.
I gotta say, I love Klondike Joe Boyle.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
Like, because his badass story is so incredibly random and runs the gamut of like he's forming a this ragtag hockey team to go challenge the Stanley Cup winners, and then he's over stealing like the crown jewels of Romania or whatever. Like, what the heck? his story is so bizarre and so all over the place that like you almost can't really you can't even really make a movie out of it because there's so many weird episodes. It feels wholly untrue, and so that I do love Klondike Joe Boyle for providing something that just like
yeah. Like the other one that's kind of like that for me is like Wojtek the Bear.
Yes,
that's the one. Like the cold open for
classic.
that one is great. The cold open for Wojtek is very fun, and just the story with that bear is just like it starts weird and it keeps getting weirder and weirder, and you're like, this can't be real, and then you see pictures of the thing, and you're like, what is happening with this bear? What is this story? He's
a bear. He served his country. He wandered into the showers and surprised a guy, and yes.
I think you're underplaying the served his country part.
Well, yeah.
He's like a soldier.
Yes,
he was like
enlisted,
a working bear.
Yeah.
It's pretty. That I mean, that's one of the original like badass of the week like hit stories. So
I
think we did that as like episode 3 practically.
The Ghost Camaro is a really fun one.
Yeah.
I had a good time with the Ghost Camaro.
Oh, that was fun, yeah. And we paired that with Big Wind.
Yeah, Big Wind and the Ghost Camaro.
Badass machines and the people who drive them. Yeah.
Yes.
Helga Meyer,
But there's also just like great things like I vividly recall the Great Locomotive Chase for being another like. Yeah, I mean, there's these tales that we've done of guys who've done really crazy stuff in war, like jumping on grenades and, all this sort of stuff that you're like, wow, but you also kind of expect a little bit. But then you get to something like the Great Locomotive Chase, and you're like, wait, what? They're stealing a locomotive, and then they're driving it backwards, and there's another locomotive chasing that one, and it's just like this is real.
A rowboat in Florida, like fighting an alligator with an oar, right?
Yeah.
I love that part of that story where like neither of those guys had ever seen an alligator before, and they're rowing through Florida, and this alligator popped up. No, it was like they'd seen alligators and they were scared of them, but then a manatee popped up out of the water and they didn't know what it was, so they hit it with an oar because they were scared of it. They're like, everything here's trying to kill us. Get this thing.
Poor manatee.
Hey guys, whack.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah. You know what's a fun one? One of my favorites is Scarlet Lion Kongor. Pat has been reading these like Mongolian mythology stories.
Yeah.
He did Handsome Mignon and Scarlet Lion Kongor.
Yeah.
The Handsome Mignon episode has significant traffic. It might be one of our most listened to episodes, honestly.
Yeah, and Ben, I really liked working on those episodes with you because you like really got how the Mongolian epic really vibes with some of the tropes in Western cowboy movies.
Yeah, Western. It's like Western cowboy stuff meets King Arthur meets Genghis Khan.
Yeah.
Like I got into it so much that I bought fermented mare's milk and drank it on the show and almost died.
That was almost the end of the podcast.
Yes, that was the end of my like trying to find a drink to emulate the episode.
I don't think we're insured for fermented. What was that?
Fermented milk.
That I bought from Mongolia online.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you're here to tell us about it, so.
Yes.
We can continue.
Survived.
Andrew, you don't have to worry.
Hay.
Calm down.
Yeah.
You know, it was a fun episode. We had a guest come on and talk about Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah.
Jason Cavanaugh came on and did a Colonel Sanders episode for Thanksgiving this year. And that was super fun. I had no idea that guy was so interesting.
Yeah.
But he got started like super late in life after having been fired from like multiple jobs for like fist fighting. Like he was a lawyer and he punched his client in a courtroom once because they were arguing.
as you do.
Yeah.
Right. And he's a really, really interesting guy. I was really surprised because you found that guest, Andrew. One thing that Andrew does is he helps us get our guests. You send a very, very official looking letters being like, hello, I'm the producer of this show and the host would like to meet with you. And people are like, oh, that's fancy. I'll do it. But yeah, you got you found Jason, and I was like, well, it's gonna be Thanksgiving. Maybe he can do like he did the show on like the food that made us.
Mm.
And,
the food that built America.
food that built America. And then I was like, who's the most badass food person? And he was like, oh my God, let me tell you about Colonel Sanders. This is gonna be awesome. And it was great.
Who knew?
Yeah, that was a good episode.
Yeah.
Who knew, indeed.
Yeah.
I think the most recurring badass is Hercules. Hercules comes up all the time. We did him in episode 1.
Yeah.
And he just comes up. It seems like every historical badass that we've covered has in some way tried to emulate Hercules, even though Hercules is a psycho.
Yeah. Listen to that episode.
They all want to be associated with him in some way.
Okay, you say he's psycho. Some people say, oh, he's pursued by the gods, But yeah, he's the...
It's a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
I will say one of our most popular episodes was actually North Sentinel Island.
Woo!
Oh, that's a cool story, though. That's a really fun one.
Which is just like... It's not even like a person, which is kind of fun.
The people collectively,
it's the people, yeah. But it is one of those places like you say that and you're like, oh, this island, like don't go there. No one's allowed to go there, and if you do go there, the people there, there's a good chance they'll just kill you. It's like this untouched island and community, and none of them know anything about, McDonald's or the Avengers.
Right. Yeah. It's just like I don't know, it's like a Jules Verne book, but it's in real life, just this place that, hasn't been touched by the outside world. Not very many of those places left in the world. And that's such an interesting story.
Yeah, full endorsement. Look it up, Google it. It's super cool. Don't go there.
Yeah, listen to our podcast
and
from the safety of your
What was fun for me, what I wasn't expecting going into it, but when Ben and I were doing research for the episode, I wound up learning about the anthropologist who actually successfully made peaceful contact with them.
Yes.
So by being she didn't look badass, but it was kind of badass in how she figured out how to approach them peacefully, offer coconuts, be non-threatening. Like sometimes being non-threatening itself is a badass act, that was a fun episode. That was really,
That was a very badass, kind of like the librarians, the Timbuktu librarians. That's another one that episode does really well.
Yeah.
But that was a fun one. The librarians that smuggled all of the books out of Timbuktu.
Well, I think it's worth talking about, we could do a little bit of talking about what's coming up next.
Yes. So actually, I'm looking at this really quickly. We are coming up on 2 years. So our first episode was April 2023. So it'll be 2 years next month.
What?
Doing the show.
Which makes sense for 100 episodes.
Yeah, fair enough. Badass of the week. I don't know.
Calendar math, not our structure.
Yes. Ben Pythagoras would be proud of you.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, in terms of what's coming up, I think, I wish we could talk about all of it.
I know. We have cool stuff in the works that is
we have
almost
some very cool stuff in the works. We are, I will tease a little bit. We are, and Pat, I think some of this you're fully in the loop on, but we are working on a little bit of a spin-off. We're diving into some more narrative, deep dive sort of documentary storytelling that'll be sort of multi-part episodic. And so it's a slow going process. It's a lot of research, a lot of writing.
That's Andrew's way of saying Ben hasn't written it yet, and I'm getting really annoyed that
I'm just asking
down
for a
in
page
Brazil
a day.
And he hasn't been working on this thing.
He's hanging out on the beaches in Brazil,
not writing this narrative thing that I want him to write. When's episode 1 gonna be done?
We're getting there. All right, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be super exciting.
Really
we're gonna drop it in this feed eventually. I think we're gonna do it this year. I feel very good about that.
I have faith in you.
And then it'll launch a new feed, and hopefully the plan is to have more sort of deep dive historical storytelling in that new feed. So that's sort of one thing, and then the other thing is we've been working on sort of a partnership for 8 months 8 months now, and it's gonna be a really big deal. And I wish I could say more about that but there's lawyers and contracts and we got to work through all of that and have ink to paper before we can even talk about how we're going to launch it. But when we do, it's going to be super super cool, and I think a lot of people are going to show up to hear about it. So
it has to be super cryptic in the way we talk about it currently.
Super cryptic, but one
it's
day
gonna be cool. It is big.
For our listeners listening to this episode, when it happens, hopefully in about maybe 2 months from now, or at the rate our lawyers are working, if they're listening to this podcast, 8 months from now.
For those of you who are interested in becoming podcasting producers or television producers, most of Andrew's job is asking people to do something and then waiting for them to respond, waiting for them to do it. A lot of Andrew's job is, how are we doing on this thing? Are you almost done with this?
So yeah, for everyone listening, for our listeners, it's coming. You will be rewarded when we announce it. You will, I believe, think it is legitimately a holy crap.
It is legitimately a holy crap.
That's cool.
Thing, yeah,
badass.
So it is pretty badass. Yeah. It's pretty badass. I do think it's worth putting out a call to our listeners to be like, listen, we're still going to be making episodes and we want to hear from you. If you've got badasses, send them our way.
Yeah, we want to hear about them.
If you have a badass story you can tell for some reason, reach out to us. We don't know all of the badasses in the world, so please help us out.
Yes, that is the fun thing of having been doing this now since 2004. So I'm on 21 years of writing about badasses, and forget about also my whole life before that reading about them. There are still ones that come up. When Pat was like, I'm going to talk about the story of how Scarlet Lion Kongor defeated Ironhead Manga, I was like, I don't know this. I've never heard of either of these characters. I like being surprised by new badasses I've never heard of before. So that's very fun. What's also very fun and somewhat surprising is that we're doing this episode as part of the 3rd edition of Podcast-thon. It's a program where for 1 week, more than 1,000 podcasts feature a charity of their choice. We went with an organization called Building Homes for Heroes. It's a group that builds or modifies homes and then gifts them mortgage-free to injured veterans, first responders, and their families.
So it's really great that we're getting to do this. If you'd like to know more about them, you can find them online at buildinghomesforheroes.org. They just this past December, they actually built their 400th home, which is very cool. It's a lot of homes, and let's help them build some more. Now getting back to what we were talking about before, beyond all that secret information that I can't share, I did actually solicit from our many guests over the past few years. I made a request if they wanted to say anything on the podcast on our 100th episode, and so they sent in some clips, and I'd love to play them for you guys.
All right. And most of us haven't heard any of these, so this will be exciting.
I've only heard one of them, so I'm looking forward to hearing what they have to say. I'm not even sure what order we're about to hear them. If
the comments are unfavorable, we will edit them out. Yes. They're like, don't ever contact me again.
Yeah, Ian, keep it clear.
Please.
They're going to be like, everything was great except for the producer. And I'll be like, delete.
No, you just edit it. Everything was great. Yeah. Producer. And
it'll be like, especially the producer. Okay. All right, here we go. Here's number one. This one looks like it's from Eric from Epic Fails of History.
Ooh.
Hey, Ben, it's your buddy Eric from Epic Fails of History. Congrats on 100 episodes. That's awesome. That's insane. Keep up the good work, and here's to 100 more. There's still plenty of historical badasses to pull from. Nikola Tesla, Queen Elizabeth I, Abraham Lincoln, Alexander the Great, Marcus Aurelius, Mary Shelley, Ada Lovelace, Alan Turing, Hedy Lamarr, Chuck Yeager, John Glenn, the Soviet Venera space probes, and of course, the Wright brothers. In the meantime, I'm looking forward to being back on the pod in the not too distant future. Huzzah!
I think he just gave us like 4 months worth of material right there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, well, thanks, Eric.
That's always the nice one, because like that's one fun thing about doing the show is that, like, you know, you have people and you're like, hey, do you want to come on the show and talk about somebody? And with most of the guests that we've had on the show, they're not just like, yeah, I could talk about somebody. They're like, here's 6 people. Which one you want? You know?
Yeah.
We're going to do the Venera space probe soon, like, because that was a story that I didn't know anything about. And so Eric and I worked on a couple books together in the past, and I've been on his show before. And we're gonna do a show together like next couple of weeks. That's on the Soviet attempts to land a probe on Venus, which was like just a crazy story because Venus is insane. It just melts anything that you try to land on the surface. So I don't know, it's gonna be cool.
Well, let's get him on.
Yeah.
All right, is the next one. Let's see from who.
Hello, this is Daniele Bolelli from History on Fire. For this 100th episode celebration, I'll make no requests of topics to cover. Rather, I want to use these few seconds to give props to the man himself, Mr. Ben Thompson. The Homer of badassery, the bard of ass-kicking larger-than-life characters, the foul-mouthed poet of those I can't believe this is not a movie already moments in history. I started following Ben's work back in the days of the Badass of the Week website, before the podcast, before the books, and I love having had a chance to follow his journey. I look forward to whatever he'll be dishing out in the future.
Oh.
Yeah, Daniele is awesome. I will say that, like, listening to all these people say nice things about me, I kind of feel like everybody's singing. I kind of feel like when they bring out the cake at a restaurant and everybody starts singing happy birthday to you, and you're just like, you just turn bright red. You know, like that's kind of how I'm feeling listening to this. People say nice things about me. I'm like, I don't know how to respond. But yeah, Daniele is awesome. And he was on for a couple of really, really fun episodes. And then I was able to go on his show too, which was really, was just really cool. We kind of told the story of Badass on his podcast.
Oh, it's so nice hearing what Eric and Daniele had to say. That was really nice.
I know, it's so nice. I get all shy, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, I remember Ikkyo Sojin. That was a wild ride.
Yeah, Ikkyo. He came on a different time, and we talked about Benvenuto Cellini. I think it was just the two of us.
Yeah, I was not part of that. Yeah, that was fun.
Cellini was nuts also, in a very fun way. Very different than Ikkyo. Ikkyo was very chill, and Benvenuto Cellini was not chill at all. And but that was fun. You know, the way he crafts stories is very, very fun and clever. Yeah. His show, he does History on Fire, and History on Fire is really fun to listen to.
All right, so let's hear. I don't know who this third one is, but Ben, I can tell you're getting a little verklempt.
Turning a little red, yeah.
So I'm gonna have Jude edit in some crying sounds.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
All right, let's see who we got here coming up.
Hi, Ben, Pat, Andrew, and anyone else who makes the Badass of the Week podcast awesome. Congrats on episode 100. That is a huge achievement, and you all should be very proud. My favorite badass from history, and a person I think you should cover on the podcast, has to be Chuck Yeager, the legendary Maverick aviator. One of my favorite quotes by him is, "The fighter pilot's breakfast. A cup of coffee, 2 aspirin, a puke, and off you go." Thanks again for having me on the episode about Eddie Firestorm Loader. What a legend he is, and a celebrated figure in the Boston Fire Department. Look forward to listening to many more. Matt Freitas out.
All right, that's 2 votes for Chuck Yeager.
That's awesome.
Thanks,
I mean, like,
yeah.
he's got he's Medal of Honor winner and broke sound barrier. And, like, Chuck Yeager's like, he's one of these kind of. We had Brandon on to talk about Neil Armstrong, but Chuck Yeager, Neil Armstrong, those guys are just like, the stuff they were capable of, the stuff they did was just basically inhuman, right? They were just operating on a completely other level from normal people in a field where, like, it's all the best people at their thing in the world, right? Neil Armstrong was a legend among astronauts, and astronauts are like already the best thing you can get in their field.
All right, let's do the next one, and I've got a few more of these. So, all right, here we go.
Congratulations on 100 episodes, Ben. I've loved chatting about so many incredible people in history with you. And I also love that we seem to end just about every episode the exact same way, admitting that history really is stranger and far more incredible than fiction. Your podcast has illuminated a lot of really exceptional people in this world, and I can't wait for our next conversation. Well done, sir. Bravo.
That was Brandon Phibbs.
Yeah, Brandon's been on a few times too. Brandon's great because he just like he's one of these guys that sends a list. He's like, who do we want to talk about? Because there's like I've got 20 people that we could talk about. Pick one, and then we always have good conversations when he comes on because he always has the he really does his research, and when he shows up, he's got everything ready to rock. Like. Brandon's got a good radio voice, too. I feel like he does a good job with radio voice.
Yeah. Always good. All right, Mike Primavera. Here we go.
Hey, this is Mike Primavera. I've been a guest on Badass of the Week a few times for Spartacus, Hannibal Barca. I think my favorite badass is definitely Hannibal Barca, the guy who marched elephants in an army through the Alps and took it to Rome pretty hard. I'd really like to see you guys cover Joe Louis, the American boxer from the early 1900s. He was a pretty amazing guy. I'm a big fan of the podcast, and I feel honored to have been a guest this many times. So I hope to hear more from you.
Mike and I have been friends like forever. I feel like every time he comes on, there's some crazy story that comes up from some silly thing that we did when we were growing up. But I've been friends with Mike for a long time. And it was really cool to get to have him on the show because he's very funny. Like Mike always manages to.
He does, yeah.
He always manages to crack me up.
All right. This one's just Ian can fix this, and I told him he'd have to. This one's in 2 clips. So something happened to the audio recording, and so it's in 2 clips. So you'll have to give me a sec to hit the second clip to finish it.
Okay.
But this one is from Ian, so it's his own damn fault.
Oh.
Hey, this is Ian, the editor of the podcast. Every so often my name pops in there, so you might recognize it. It's hard to believe we've reached 100 episodes because they fly by while I'm working on them. And that's because I love history. It's where all the greatest stories come from. And so learning about people I'd never heard of before and their absolute badassery, just the things that I've heard and learned while listening and editing these episodes week after week is just been a real pleasure for me. I hope everyone currently listening and those who come around to listening love it because these people deserve to have their names known for what they did. So here's to another 100 episodes and another 100 badasses. And to the fans listening right now, we love you guys. Thanks. Maybe one day I'll be on an episode talking about a badass I love.
There you go. Yeah. I love that our story editor, whose job is to cut our episodes down to reasonable times, probably gave us the longest clip.
in 2 clips that he's going to have to edit together, right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing, though. So I was going to say this because somebody else, one of the other people that were on was like, yeah, thanks to everybody. I think it was Matt Freitas said to everybody who makes the show happen. And, it's the 3 of us, but Ian and Jude are our editors, and they do a lot of like heroic behind the scenes work because I just remember with the website I would post it every Friday, and there'd be days where it was just like I didn't really prepare anything. It's Friday. Like I actually have stuff to do with my actual life and my job, but I got to get something posted today. And so I'll kind of like, wake up early in the morning, kind of assemble notes of things that I've been working on, figure out who I'm going to talk about. And then I can kind of like get all my work done really fast at work and then bang out in the last hour, bang out the badass and then post it up on the website. And then, okay, cool. I did it. Now I can go have the weekend. But you can't do that with this podcast because you have to, then I would just like have to throw it to Ian and be like, Ian, you got to edit this on the weekend. I'm sorry, man. This episode's got to come out on Tuesday. It's Thursday afternoon. He'll be emailing me like, or texting me like Sunday, like, did you do the cold open for this yet? Because like, I'm supposed to have this edited in like 48 hours and posted online. And so there are a lot of things like that will come up, and it's like, yeah, I know it's 4:58 on Friday, but here's an hour-long episode with 3 guests, and here's the cold open that you're going to have to find sound effects and music for. And anyway, it's got to be posted by midnight Monday night. So can you do that? And these guys they always do an amazing job, and not only do they do great work, but also under like sometimes some very, I sometimes unnecessarily put them in stressful situations. I feel like.
Yeah, we try.
But Aaron's always nice. He's always like, no problem. Don't worry about it. I'm up late. It'll be fine. So I do appreciate that. He doesn't make me feel bad about it sometimes.
Well, we got one more. Hold on.
This one's going to be Jude telling me to go to hell, right? Stop posting this stuff.
Hey, I'm Jude Brewer. You've heard me all across these past 100 episodes, though you just weren't aware of it. You've heard me get shot. You've heard me fall out of trains, explode into a million pieces. You've heard me die dozens of times. You've even heard me as a whole army of people. The coolest part about designing our cold opens is that I never know what to expect until Ben and Pat have delivered them. Something I'd love to hear more about are scientific badasses, technological and medical badasses, like ancient astronomers or mathematicians. Most of all, thank you for listening to our show and building it with us. We couldn't do it without you.
Yeah. So Jude, whenever you hear someone, like it's most of the time, when you hear someone in the cold open being like, or like, I'll get you, whatever. That's usually it's pretty often it's Jude. He's the magician, the wizard behind all of the music and the explosions and the swords clanging and the trains, chugging and all that good stuff.
And that is like so vital, I feel like, to the episode. I love, like, there's times when the new episode comes out, I don't have time to listen to the whole thing, but I'll listen to the cold open because it always sounds so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I record those, like I sit on the floor of my closet and I record them into a microphone, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not that dramatic. But then when you hear it with the music and the machine gun sounds and the yelling and all that, like it ends up being very epic. And those cold opens, with the badass books and on the website, the first thing when you see a badass, you see their name, and then sometimes there's a little quote by them or whatever, and then there's a big picture, and that kind of sets the stage. Like, this is what you're dealing with. This is those pictures can be super epic, and you're like, wow, who is this guy? I got to know more. And for podcasting, you don't really have that luxury of using a picture, but those cold opens present that, where it's just like, you have this 1 or 2 minute thing at the beginning, and it's like, this is the story that you're going to get, and it just grabs you and holds on to you. And that's all Jude taking my audio or Pat's audio and transforming it into this kind of very, epic, attention grabbing thing that makes you want to listen to the rest of the episode.
That's it. That's all the clips I've got.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've been self-congratulatory enough for one episode.
You think?
Nobody else wants to tell me I'm great? No.
Yeah. And also a big thank you to our listeners for being there.
Yeah.
We love you.
We do.
But I want to say to both of you, you guys are both great. I appreciate, the work you guys have both done over the past, 100 episodes, 100 plus if you count bonus. We're not counting the bonus. But you're showing up every week or sometimes multiple times a week, and just, telling great stories and informing people, entertaining people, and it's been a pleasure working with you both on this show, and remarkable to make 100 of anything.
Yes.
So the audience keeps growing. We hope it's going to grow more, and I think when we launch some stuff, it's going to really take off. And to all the listeners who've been with us so far or just joining now, we're excited to have you, and let's get another 100 episodes.
Yeah, and that's it, right? It is work. It is, sometimes it feels like hard work because we are, it does require a lot of time and energy and research and planning. And we meet a couple times every time we do an episode. We have to meet once or twice before to talk about it and figure out what, an outline and that kind of thing. It is work. It's hard work, but it's fun and I enjoy it. And I really like making these episodes and doing them. But Pat, you were and Andrew, you guys were right about that it's the people who listen to the show are the ones who make it possible. So without your guys' support listening to our show, you've been great with, commenting and subscribing and liking and all of that stuff, because all of your support makes the whole thing possible. And I enjoy it. I love doing it. So it's great that, we're kind of taking positive stories from history and talking about them in a positive way and getting positive feedback. It feels like a very good, positive energy loop, and that makes me happy.
Yes.
We need more of that in the world.
All right. Well, I think that we've done enough self-congratulating today. We patted ourselves on the back. Now it's time to get back to work. Ben, I need pages.
Yes, I am. I got Comic-Con this weekend. I'm at Emerald City Comic-Con this weekend, and after that,
all right, next week.
Next week, I will get you pages.
All right,
and we'll do this other thing, and it's going to be cool because it is cool. We've already done all the research on it, organized it all. All we have to do is write the scripts now, and it's going to be cool.
And Ben, I just want to add that as part of Podcastathon, before we wrap up, if you enjoyed this episode and if you support the mission, maybe check out www.podcastathon.org to discover hundreds of other charities being supported through the voices and talents of so many other amazing podcasters.
Thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for being with us for 100 episodes. And let's do some more. Thank you so much. And I guess we will see you next week, where we will be talking about something other than ourselves.
Yes.
And
stay badass.
Stay badass.
Yeah, we both got to do the line.
Hey, look at that.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.